Well, she is the type of child that would give you the shirt off her back. She never wanted anybody mad at her for anything. She wanted everybody to be her friend. She wanted everybody to be happy.
Several cases of unsolved missing black women from the Chicago area.
When it comes to us, they waited 2 years before they even said it was foul play.
I kept asking myself, why her? Why couldn't it have been me instead of her?
Welcome back, and thank you so very much for tuning into this video. Now, this video is going to be a lot different from the usual videos that I cover because this case is about a child. Now, before we begin, I do want to say that I am not too fond of covering cases that involve children, and when I first started this, I saw that there was more than enough cases that could be covered without me having to talk about children. If you know, I am a mother of a 4-year-old boy, and it's just really difficult to hear about these cases, nevertheless cover them, and just have to constantly revisit it and even go into depth and details. So I just wanted to go ahead and give out a disclaimer, a huge disclaimer before beginning this video. And as much as we all love true crime, sometimes some cases are truly just too heavy. Today we are going to be talking about Asha Jaquila Degree. Now, Asha Shaquilla Degree has been missing for 24 years. 24 years, 1 month, and 10 days to be exact. Asha was a beautiful, beautiful little girl. She was born on August 5th, 1990. And her being a fire sign, a Leo to be exact, I just know her personality was just out of this world. If you guys know anything about fire signs, their personality is just out of this world. So I just know that Asha filled her home with nothing but laughter and positivity. She was born in Shelby, North Carolina, and it is in the city and the county state of Cleveland County, and it is about an hour and 57 minutes away from Charlotte. So Asha Degree was born to her father Harold and her mother Iquila, and as I was doing my research, I saw that her middle name had actually matched up with her mother's name, so I was like, oh, that's cool, she's a junior. Harold and Iquila had actually got married in 1988, and the most romantic thing, they actually eloped on Valentine's Day. A year later, in 1989, the pair had actually became parents to their first son, which they named O'Brien. Not too far behind came Asha, who was born in 1990. They were basically like the perfect family. They had the two working mom and dad. They had the one son and the one daughter. It had been said that they were both worked regular jobs and their kids were basically well off. And when I say well off, I don't mean wealthy, but the kids were definitely comfortable. And I did go ahead and look at the houses on maps in that area, and if they looked anything like they did today, then the family was definitely living comfortable. And most of the houses in that area had been built before the 90s, and much hadn't changed but maybe just a little bit of the inside. But nevertheless, this was an okay area. So it had been said that her father worked as a dock loader and her mother a Kauai America manufacturing building pianos. And this company had basically been known for making grand pianos, but nevertheless a two-family working household. It had been actually said that Asha and O'Brien, which had been her older brother if you remember, they would let themselves in after school. So around that time it seemed as if the parents felt their neighborhood was safe, or at least they trusted their children. And of course, I'm sure it was like this for every parent out there, or guardian, grandma, whatever. But the parents expected for their kids to basically at least be doing their homework or have it finished once they got home. And like I stated before, I think that's something that we can all relate to, like worldwide. But the parents actually attempted to shield their children as much as they can. I mean, they did not even have access to a computer at home, so there was no access to internet. They made sure to keep their children's focus on relatives, school, and most importantly, church. So as I stated before, before, the family did not own a laptop computer, and they did have limited access to the internet, if any at all. Her mother would often see the news just spewing out the disgusting things that had been happening in the neighborhood, and just pretty much wanted to shield her children away from that and also any other outside influences. She actually stated in an interview with Jet that she had in 2013, every time you turn on the TV, there was some pedo who would be luring someone's child away via the internet. Which, I mean, she was not wrong about this. It's been happening then, and it's still happening now in today's time. But Asha did not seem to have any issues with this. She really didn't care much for the internet. Her mother describes her as a shy, cautious, and pretty much content young lady. They stated that Asha mostly obeyed her mother and her father. Her mother had recalled years later that Asha had actually been afraid of dogs, and these were one of the reasons that her mother felt like Asha would never go outside. At the time of Asha's disappearance, she had been attending 4th grade, and she had been attending a school not too far from her home called Fallston Elementary School. At the time of her disappearance, she had been going into an extended 3-day weekend. It had been the 2nd week of February in the year of 2000. Asha was on the basketball team at her school along with her brother. Now, just to clarify, they were not on the same team, obviously. I don't think that's even possible anyway because they were in completely different grades. But nevertheless, her brother played basketball as well. And I can just imagine how the home life was, not to get sidetracked, but I can just imagine how the home life was. They was probably always challenging each other, or like, you know, you ever like had a piece of garbage and like you just balled it up like a basketball and threw it into the trash. So it was probably a lot of that going on in the house. But on February 12th of the year 2000, she had a basketball game. Now, minutes before the game had ended, Asha had actually fouled out of the game. And shortly after, her team ended up losing their basketball game. This obviously upset Asha, upset her so much so to the point where she began to cry. And of course, Asha's entire team had been devastated due to their loss, but Asha had been distraught about this. Shortly after, Asha had actually mentioned to her mother that her leg was actually in pain. Her mother reassured her that she'd be fine and to just get back out there. And mother knows best because shortly after, just minutes later, Asha was back and she felt better. So her brother played basketball as well. They weren't on the same team, but they both did play basketball. And that same day, they both had a game. The family was obviously very supportive and was able to make it to both of their games. So Asha's game was first and then his premiered after. After the games, the family decided that they were going to go out for a little outing. They decided to go and get some food. And once that was over, Asha actually decided to head over to her cousin's house for a sleepover. And her parents were not cautious about her sleeping over there because this was not something that was unfamiliar to the family. It was something that she frequently did. So they didn't mind, but they were not fond of just sending their children out anywhere. So just to set the scene for you guys, the next day it had been Valentine's Day. And at this point, she already, you know, went to her family's house and she came back home. So around 3:45 a.m., a truck driver, he had been going about his day on his route, and he states that he saw a young lady walking down the road. And he said this little girl had been wearing a dress. He stated that it was late and it had been strange that a little girl was just walking by herself that late at night, but he said that she seemed to have known where she was going, and she had also been walking at a good pace. And from his account after that, he just saw her walk into the darkness. At 4:15, another trucker was with his son on a trucking route, and he tells police that he saw someone who resembled a young woman. He said that she had just been walking down the road, and he actually radioed to other truckers just to notify them that there was a young lady walking along the road and just for them to be careful. And he was actually in fear of her safety and did not want her to get hurt. He had been thinking to himself, man, this woman can actually get hurt. So he felt like sending out that signal would save her in a way. By the time the police got worried about this, it had been hours later though. Now, before I speak on the next driver, I am going to go ahead and backtrack just a little bit. We are going to talk about what happened that night. Obviously speaking from the family's perspective. Now, we left off with Asha's nap being interrupted affected by the storm, the thunder, and around 9:30 that night, the power had actually been knocked out due to the storm. Well, actually it was due to a car hitting a pole, and that knocked the lights out. And around 12:30, I believe, a.m., the power had been restored. Around 2 a.m., the dad and brother states that they went off to bed. I believe just the brother, and the brother did see at that same time state that he saw his sister go to use the bathroom and then go head back to her room. And then I believe like 30 minutes later, or like into the midnight maybe, he states that he did hear her bed creak a little, and he thought it was just her tossing and turning, so he just thought nothing of it. Around 5 or 6 a.m., the mom wakes up and she just goes ahead and does her regular morning routine and goes on to wake her children up. O'Brien came out of his room to show himself, but Asha did not. This obviously alarmed her mother. Her mother is like, hold on, wait, what's going on? And she decided to go up to the room to manually wake her up, thinking, maybe she's sleeping hard or whatever. She reaches the room though, and she realizes that Asha is nowhere to be found. She's not in her room, and after 10 minutes of searching, she decides that she's going to need the help of the police. So the police shows up around 7 a.m. I'm not sure the exact time, but they show up around 7 a.m. and Asha's mother states that she had every police officer in the county at her home searching for her daughter. Rightfully so. And honestly, same. I feel like I'd have the entire everybody out there searching for my baby as well. So I definitely understand. They are on their search for 9-year-old Asha at this point, and they have firefighters out there, helicopters on the scene. They have volunteers from, randoms. They have canines out there. But it had been beginning to get dark, and they had to call the search off at this point. But the very next day, the search did resume. So during the initial search, it had been said that a candy wrapper had been found, and I don't know how many searches they did do for her, but I do know that when the truck driver did say that he saw her run into the fog, into the dark, that's where they went to go search, in that part of the woods. They took the candy wrapper back to Asha's parents, and Asha's parents said that they did not know where that candy wrapper came from. So they denied it being Asha's at all. Now back to the truck driver's statement. At 8:30 a.m., a truck driver said that he was driving along the road and he actually heard about Asha's disappearance, and shortly after he saw a girl that resembled Asha, a girl he thought could have been her. But upon that search, they didn't find anything of Asha's, no traces of her. 2 days after her disappearance, a family had been searching in their old barn, an unused barn in their backyard, and they actually found some items. Among these items had been a little yellow bow, a white pencil, candy wrappers again, a green marker, and also a wallet-sized photo of a little girl that was not Asha. So the police collects this evidence and they bring it back to Asha's parents. And Harold and Aquila states that all the items was Asha's except for obviously the photo. And no one knew who the little girl in the photo had been, and still to this day, no one came forward to state, hey, this is me in the photo, or hey, I know this little girl. Nothing. And the photo, I have not been able to find that photo of the little girl, so I'm not even really sure how people was able to say whether or not the photo, they knew the person or they were the person. In August of the year 2001, so a year and a couple of months after she had gone missing, a farmer had actually been trying to cut a new road through the highway, and that is where he discovered a book bag. And this book bag, from some accounts, people say that it was buried, but he found the book bag, and obviously the book bag belonged to Asha. So just to set the scene, it was found at a construction site near the highway. And obviously it's not a crime scene, so there's no crime scene photos or pictures of a scene. But this bag had confirmed to be Asha's. The bag contained Asha's name and also her phone number, and this is how police was able to determine whose bag it belonged to. In a 2020 interview, Asha's mother did state that she thinks that her daughter is alive and still out there somewhere. 24 years later and still absolutely no trace of Asha. There is a $45,000 reward for anyone who has valuable information on her whereabouts or have valuable information on what could have happened to her. Okay, so I do want to go ahead and move on to the theories surrounding Asha's disappearance. And keep in mind, these are not facts. These are just theories that people have based on the information that was provided to us. So one theory they do have is that Asha did not run away. Rather, she was going towards something. A creator on TikTok named Kylie stated in 2022 that Asha had probably been led out of her house by someone that she knew. The evidence that they have to support this theory is that Asha was described as a shy, timid girl, someone who would be very unwilling to go outside in the middle of the night in the dark with a stranger. Asha was afraid of the dark, and as I mentioned before, she was also afraid of dogs, and she had also been afraid of storms. And if you guys remember earlier in the video, I did mention that there was a storm that occurred, so I don't think she would have wanted to just go out in the storm in the nighttime with a stranger unless she had been pressured by somebody that she knew. But we don't really know what happened because Asha is not here to let us know. There had also been no sign of forced entry in the room or the home at all. Her and her brother shared a room with each other at that time, and he would have been able to see anything out of the ordinary. There would have been some type of commotion. I'm sure he would have let his parents know that someone had been in the room. Another theory had been the fact that her parents' anniversary had been coming up. So if you guys remember, I mentioned earlier in the video that her parents had actually got married on Valentine's Day. Well, some people feel as if someone might have coerced her to maybe say, hey, let's go get a gift for your mother and your father, and that's how they was able to get her outside of her house at that time of night. To go a step further, they had used the fact that Asha had been seen getting into a bright green vehicle. Some felt as if Asha had been lured and this was a premeditated attack. They stated that she might have been coached a few days before by someone. They were stating that someone could have possibly told her, hey, pack a bag, your school bag, and meet me here at this time and on this day. They claimed that the plan would have been for them to meet up somewhere, and that's why Asha had been seen walking along the highway. Detectives even have their own theory that Asha had been picked up on that same very highway. Now, what we do know for a fact is that a car with that same make and model had been making its way up and down the highway around the same time Asha had disappeared. And police investigators are claiming that the make and model of this vehicle would have been either a early 1970s Lincoln or an early 1970s Ford Thunderbird. Now let's go ahead and jump into the leads that they do have on this case. So we did speak about the book bag being found buried at that construction site, and that had been found a year after she had went missing. They obviously do have speculations that it may have been dropped there by the person who could have possibly picked up Asha. And we already spoke about the lead with the bright green vehicle that Asha was said to have been seen getting into. Now, this was a bright green car. I'm sorry. I am going to go ahead and put a picture of the vehicle. Now, the detective from Cleveland County Sheriff did go ahead and speak on some more leads that was found that could possibly help them get closer to finding out where Asha may be or who may have her. The investigative team actually discovered 2 items of interest that can help with this case, potentially. The first had actually been information they wanted on a purchase of a Dr. Seuss book. Now, I am going to go ahead and put the picture of the Dr. Seuss book here, just so you guys know. And they specifically wanted to know who purchased this book during the time of February 2000. The second clue had been a t-shirt that had been found. Now, this t-shirt had the concert logo of New Kids on the Block. And I am also going to go ahead and insert a picture just over here. But other than that, there had been no lead. Asha's family members, along with the police, felt as if this had been a runaway situation instead of a kidnapping. They felt as if Asha left on her own accord. Everything in her home seemed to be put together. Nothing was out of place. There have been no signs of foul play. And again, as I mentioned earlier, she did share a room with her brother. So if there had been anything out of the ordinary, any random person in the bedroom, I'm sure the brother would have alerted someone. From the outside looking in, Asha seemed to have a loving family that was very hardworking. She seemed to have a beautiful relationship with sports and school. She had been very close with her other relatives. The only stressor we know she seemed to have had was the loss of her basketball game, which she obviously took very seriously. I truly wish that there had been more sightings on her, more information on this case.
And that is frightening because Asha did not just walk off the face of the earth. Someone somewhere has to know something. In 2022, a young woman had been arrested, and a lot of people had been under the impression that this had actually been Asha. In my honest opinion, I do not feel like the two girls resemble, but a lot of people do. Posts had actually been made and went viral after a young woman had went missing and actually told the police that she did not think her real family was her actual family. She told the police that she had not seen her mother since she was 10 years old. This young lady's name had not been made public as of yet, nor did her age, but if it does, I will definitely make sure to make an updated video. 24 years later, and there is still no more leads on Asha's disappearance. It just seems as if she walked out of the house, walked onto the highway, and that was it. And I could not find a picture of the young lady by herself, only side by side. So I will be linking the videos of TikTok videos that do have the side by side picture down in the description box below, so you guys can see for yourselves. Now, I just want to say, if you are watching this and you do have any information on Asha's whereabouts or what may have happened to her, you can definitely call the number that is listed below. I am sure the investigators will take any information that can help. Until the next video, I do just want to say, please keep it respectful in the comments, because you just never know, and it costs nothing to be nice. As always, if you have any cases that you would like for me to cover, all my information for contact will be in the description box below. And I thank you so very much for taking the time to watch this video. Be safe, my beauty kids, and see you in the next video.